how has MMA and its history become the great equalizer in society?
MMA has been around for almost all of human history. It has had depictions in ancient Greece and Egyptian culture. It is believed that martial arts was created in order to equal the playing field, to make it possible for a smaller man to defend himself against a larger man, and to make you more than just your weapon, to form a soldier into a weapon, a skill to use in war or self-defense. So, Will, how does MMA affect society and its history?
Throughout all of human history, man has had to defend himself against other people. Like, society has never been a perfect place, and someone has always had to defend themselves against somebody else. Martial arts gives people the advantage in doing that. Like, a smaller person is most always going to, like, lose to a larger person in a straight-up fight. If someone's skilled and, like, turn themselves into a weapon for themselves to defend themselves against a larger man, they get the advantage in that fight.
Yeah, humans, I heard something about it, even before civilizations really started, they would draw, like, the inspiration of how to fight from different animals that they'd watch fight. And they would learn and kind of mold it into a martial art to defend themselves against the animals and other tribes that were rivals to them.
Yeah, that is how most kung fu started, actually. It's theorized that the way praying mantis style kung fu was created was a monk was walking through the woods and he saw a sparrow and a praying mantis in combat, and he stayed to watch the fight, and he watched the praying mantis use its advantages against the sparrow, and that's how he figured out the how to design praying mantis style kung fu.
That's very interesting. You really can see it if you watch any modern MMA, how that still has influences into it and has been affecting society through all these generations.
Yeah, grappling, pulling people in is kind of what it was all about. And there's plenty of other styles, like, definitely a big thing that people pass through history. It's, like, become a sport, a way to dispute things. Duels used to be done by combat before weapons. There was a certain style of dueling where people would hold a rag and they'd fight or box each other until one person let go of the rag, and that's how they disputed their...
That was more Western martial arts, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
Yeah.
Seeing how our last conversation really bled into this, how do you think MMA in the modern history affects society?
Well, MMA in the modern history is very interesting because before you had, like, Eastern and Western fighting styles and, like, kung fu versus boxing type things, and they really wouldn't fight each other that much, and it was heavily disputed which was better. And during the last century, around the World War II time, when Western militaries occupied Korea, Vietnam, Japan, and China around those times, that they started seeing these Eastern martial arts and would bring them back to the Western world. And it started being which martial art was better, and they would really create mixed martial arts around that time.
Yeah, it's really become a sport. It's interesting seeing how people connect these. I think in 1993 the UFC was founded, and that was really the first time you heard the term mixed martial arts. Like, people have been mixing martial arts all throughout history, but 1993 it really became popularized with the bringing out the UFC. And even now that we have the Paralympics and stuff, it's not just for able-bodied people. Like, everybody's able to go out and learn a martial art. Judo is very popular with blind people, and many other martial arts are able to be done by people who aren't everyday, like, able-bodied.
Yeah, speaking of judo with the blind, the martial art, if you think about it, it hasn't been created for the blind, but if you think about how it's fought, it's up close and you really get to feel out your opponent. So it was really perfectly made for the blind to be able to defend themselves. and they've taken advantage of that, and blind judo has really taken over the Paralympics.
Yeah, with the world being the way it is right now, martial arts is a great thing. There's people being jumped, mugged every day. Like, even just learning simple techniques on how to defend yourself, martial arts is great. That's what it's designed for, you know? Like, being able to defend yourself, like, I think everyone should know a little bit about what to do in case something like that happens in today's age.
Yeah, especially, like, judo with flips and stuff are really important because you don't want to stick around because you don't know what they could have. You really just want to get them down and give yourself enough time to get away.
And judo's perfect for that. It's not designed for a large man to be able to do it. It's designed to use someone's body weight against themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's perfect for smaller people or someone who's weaker than an aggressor. Like, it's perfect for, like, children even to be able to defend themselves and get away.
And judo really has come over to MMA and, like, showed how well it works. Because even if you don't know that much, like, the basics of it, when you get close in combat, you can do, like, tuck your leg behind and flip them over. And that's translated well into mixed martial arts, where people have, like, created almost their own form of martial arts with the ones that they've learned and molded together.
Yeah, there's plenty of UFC fighters nowadays who use that and other types of grappling, because keeping a fight on the feet isn't always what's good for everyone. Like, some people are better kickboxers, boxers, like Muay Thai fighters, better to stay on their feet. But if you bring those people to the ground, you give yourself the advantage.
Yeah, and mixed martial arts, it's so perfect because, speaking of, Muay Thai has such an upward stance that takedowns have become really popular. And so Muay Thai, when it's fought in an MMA setting, they've had to kind of adjust it and, like, mold it into a different fighting style so they can avoid takedowns.
Yeah, I think Muay Thai was created to put your opponent on the ground so you could finish them off with a sword.
Yes, it was designed by the Thai army when it was in conflict, and the goal of it was when you got knocked down and you were in close combat, it was designed so that you would be able to get them on the ground so you could finish them off with your secondary weapon.
Yeah, but, like, martial arts isn't always for everyone. It's kind of expensive to learn, but, like, some people really used it in the opposite way. People, like, turn themselves, like Conor McGregor, for example. He was a plumber's apprentice, and now pretty much everybody knows his name. He told his father he was going to be a self-made millionaire by the age of 25. His father just laughed at him. And by the age of 24, that's exactly what he did. He used his fighting style to get into the UFC, and he's probably one of the most famous fighters today.
Yeah, rags to riches stories have become incredibly common all across MMA because it's really a fight for anyone. Anyone can do it. You don't need much to practice it.
Yeah, like, people blind, disabled, like, it's, like, for anybody to practice.
I don't know if you heard, but there's this guy, I think his name's Zion Clark. He doesn't have any legs, and he just won his first MMA fight in his debut.
Yeah, and even if you aren't disabled, there's plenty of other times, like, rags to riches stories have happened. Like, it's almost impossible for ex-convicts to get jobs and make money. Like, that's just the way society is. But there's plenty of ex-convict UFC fighters who are out and about right now, like Derek Lewis, one of my favorite fighters. That's what he is. He's an ex-convict from Texas in a heavyweight division.
Yeah.
Even though we do think, like, MMA is the great equalizer in society, makes man equal, we do input weight classes.
Weight classes really weren't too much of a thing until the UFC was founded in 1993, But then I think it was 97 when they started implementing weight classes because it was so out of hand of the differences in weight. If you'd have this like 125 pound lightweight going up against like a 350 pound heavyweight, and it wasn't entertaining, and it would be lopsided one way or the other because either the lightweight was able to grapple and be outmaneuver the heavyweight, or the heavyweight would just smother the lightweight. And so the UFC really started implementing weight classes to even it out, make it more entertaining and more fair for everyone.
But funny thing is, before that time, there was this before they inputted, like, you have to wear certain type of clothes to be fighting in the UFC.
Yeah.
There was this one man who was, like, really good at grappling. He wore a gi, and he actually was able to beat large opponents with that gi. He would do a special type of grappling. He would use his gi to wrap around someone's throat, and then to get a better grip, he'd put his hand inside his gi and use it to pull. So, like, even though weight classes are a thing, it just proves that, like, dedication and skill will still give you the upper hand over someone, despite or regardless of weight.
Yeah, it was the big boxers back in the day. They would get taken down very regularly by these smaller grapplers that would either be BJJ practitioners or judo or stuff like that. And they'd be able to take them down fairly easily because they'd use their own body weight against them. But once the heavyweight got on top, it was a massacre.
Yeah. But even then, those smaller guys against the bigger guys, it wasn't always a one-sided fight. Mm-hmm. It was a challenge, like, regardless of weight class. But now UFC's more organized. They got weight classes and a certain thing you have to wear. But people go into the UFC. A good fighter who you might have heard of, Jan, he was recently in a fight with Sean O'Malley. He went into the UFC as a boxer. And over time, he was able to pick up different skills that he incorporates now. He's able to throw good kicks. He's gotten pretty good at grappling and stuff. And just goes to show, like, despite what you know, like, practicing martial arts and learning from it, it will give you the advantage.
Yeah. And now in the UFC, everything, you can't just be good at one aspect of it. You have to be good at every aspect. And they've refined weight classes so much that if you miss weight by like 1 pound or less, you're not able to go for the title shot anymore. And that's changed so much from the early days where it'd be like 100-pound difference and they'd be like, oh, it's all right.
Like Butterbean versus some 125-pound guy.
Yeah, it was laughable. And now they've really focused it in so everyone has their own category to fight in. And it's become much more of an entertaining sport.
Yeah, weight classes are actually, I think, a positive thing. There was a while ago, I don't think it was UFC, I think it was either kickboxing or One Champ. Mm-hmm. There was this fighter, and he was fighting this guy. He struggled to make weight, and he didn't fully make weight. And he went into the fight looking quite ill, but he chose to fight anyways. He ended up getting punched, and he lost the fight. And after the fight, he ended up dying of brain inflammation. He ended up passing away because of it.
And these making weight has become such a thing that it's caused health problems. And one of the things I believe that One Championship does better than the UFC is they do hydration tests to make sure their fighters aren't just dehydrating themselves to make weight. Well, in the UFC, you can still just not drink water for long periods of time to try and lose as much weight as possible, which is a really scary fact that's led to some health problems for fighters.
Yeah, MMA is crazy. UFC specifically, people will gain humongous weight in the off-season, and it seems unhealthy the way they cut. Like Paddy Pimblett, how the hell does that man do it?
He's going to have some long-term health problems if he keeps it up.
that man will consume 10 pizzas a day or something like that. He gets pretty big in the offseason. Comes in the UFC before a fight, he drops weight quick, and I think he should be checked on, make sure he's healthy.
Yeah, is he a lightweight or like a flyweight? He's small.
Yeah, he's not very large. I think he might be a little tall, though.
Yeah. Even those weight classes have been inputted into modern MMA. MMA is still the great equalizer in society, and it has been throughout its entire history, and I think it'll continue being the great equalizer going into the next era. It's really equaled the playing field for everyone to have an equal opportunity in a fight.